So Carrington is a dirty player, probably the dirtiest player in the league. And then she has the audacity to go online right after her ejection and claim that she got ejected because of racism. She definitely learned well from Angel Reese. Whenever something goes against you, just pull out that race card. I think she's jealous of my natural blonde hair. She'll never have this hair. I literally got clotheslined in the air, and this clown has to turn it into race.
What did you make of Sophie Cunningham's flagrant foul on JC Cunningham?
It was a flagrant foul.
Think it's like defending the team, or how do you view this? How
I view it as a flagrant foul.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys came for basketball.
Yeah,
Let's talk about basketball. Come on now.
What do you think of just how you all were able to pull in the second half, Caitlin, in particular?
We're going to the Commissioner Cup Championship.
Let's
That's
go!
pretty exciting. Y'all want to talk about that? Let's talk about that.
What do you think, again?
The WNBA may have reached another breaking point, and this time, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are at the center of it. For weeks, controversy has followed the Indiana Fever. Hard fouls, off-court arguments, fan backlash, questions about league leadership. And now, a viral claim is suggesting that Clark and Cunningham could be pushed toward the ultimate decision, walking away from the WNBA. But did they actually threaten to leave? Or has the internet taken a series of explosive controversies and turned them into a headline that sounds bigger than the facts? The timing couldn't be more dramatic. Caitlin Clark has faced enormous attention throughout her WNBA career, while Sophie Cunningham recently became one of the league's most polarizing figures after comments about transgender athletes sparked intense backlash and protests. Then came another controversy involving Cunningham and a hard foul. And suddenly, fans began asking, how much is enough? The Indiana Fever were already one of the most watched teams in women's basketball. But in 2026, the attention surrounding the team has gone far beyond what happens on the court. At the center of everything is Caitlin Clark. Clark entered the WNBA with unprecedented attention. Every game became an event. Every foul became a debate. Every referee decision became a social media argument. And every controversial moment involving Clark quickly became national news. But this season, another Fever player has become almost equally polarizing. Sophie Cunningham. Cunningham has developed a reputation for physical play and outspoken opinions. Recently, her comments about transgender athletes created a huge controversy across the WNBA. She argued for protecting young girls in women's sports, a position that attracted support from some fans while triggering criticism from others. The controversy quickly became bigger than basketball. Protests appeared. Fans argued online. Players and coaches responded. And the WNBA eventually issued a statement condemning what it described as bad faith efforts to inflame the debate. But Cunningham didn't disappear. She continued playing. She continued speaking publicly. And she remained part of the Fever. Then came another incident. On August 8, Sophie Cunningham was involved in a controversial play against the Chicago Sky. De'Joni Carrington was ejected after the incident, with the foul later upgraded to a flagrant 2. The reaction was immediate. Fans wanted to know whether Cunningham was being properly protected. But what made the situation even more controversial was the reaction from Fever coach Stephanie White. White defended the competitive nature of Carrington's play and later emphasized that the Fever were united. Her comments didn't satisfy everyone. Some fans felt Cunningham deserved stronger public support. Others argued that White was simply being consistent and refusing to attack a player she had previously coached. Then the situation exploded again. White was booed by some Fever fans. Caitlin Clark responded. And Clark publicly criticized the booing. She made it clear that she supported her coach and her teammates. That moment was important, because it showed something that often gets lost in the noise. The Fever players themselves were emphasizing unity. They weren't publicly announcing that they wanted out. They were saying the opposite. They were standing together. But the internet had already created a different narrative. The narrative was simple. Caitlin Clark is being mistreated. Sophie Cunningham is being mistreated. The league isn't protecting them. Therefore, they might eventually leave. It's an emotionally powerful storyline. But it isn't the same thing as a confirmed announcement. Still, the frustration among fans is real. And that's where the story becomes much bigger than two players. It's about trust. It's about officiating. It's about player safety. It's about how the league responds when controversies explode. And it's about whether the WNBA can manage the enormous attention surrounding its biggest stars. The Ringer recently argued that one of the league's biggest problems is trust, particularly amid controversies involving Clark and other players. That's significant. Because the WNBA is experiencing enormous growth. More attention means more scrutiny. More fans mean more arguments. And more stars mean more pressure on the league to handle controversial situations perfectly. But perfection isn't realistic. The real question is whether players believe the system is fair. And that's where Caitlin Clark's situation becomes especially important. Because when the biggest star in the league is involved in controversy after controversy, every decision gets magnified. Every foul. Every technical. Every suspension. Every statement. And now, even the possibility of Clark leaving becomes a massive headline. But did Clark actually say she's leaving? That's the question we need to answer. Caitlin Clark has never had an ordinary relationship with the WNBA. From the moment she entered the league, expectations were enormous. She was expected to transform women's basketball. She was expected to attract new fans. She was expected to handle enormous pressure. And she was expected to perform at an elite level while every moment was being analyzed. That's an impossible standard. But Clark has largely embraced it. The problem is that attention doesn't disappear when the game ends. If she receives a hard foul, fans debate it. If she complains to an official, fans debate it. If she stays silent, fans debate it. If she speaks, fans debate it. And if she laughs at the wrong moment, someone will create a headline. That's the reality of being Caitlin Clark. Recently, that pressure intensified after multiple controversies. One particularly notable incident involved Clark's frustration with officials after receiving a technical foul. Another involved a physical play against her that generated enormous online reaction. The debate became so intense that some commentators suggested Clark should leave the WNBA and play elsewhere. But that's different from Clark herself saying she wants out. In fact, recent reporting has indicated that Clark intends to remain in the WNBA. That's an important distinction. Because social media can transform. People are telling Caitlin to leave. Into Caitlin is leaving. Those are completely different claims. The first is happening. The second requires evidence. And right now, the evidence doesn't support presenting Clark's departure as confirmed. But that doesn't mean the frustration surrounding her is imaginary. Clark has openly discussed how emotionally exhausting the constant attention can be. She has also repeatedly emphasized the importance of focusing on basketball rather than allowing controversy to dominate the sport. That's revealing. Because it suggests Clark understands exactly how quickly narratives can spiral. And Sophie Cunningham is experiencing something similar. Cunningham has become one of the most discussed players in the league. But unlike Clark, much of Cunningham's attention has come from her outspoken views and her willingness to enter controversial conversations. That has created a strange dynamic. Two fever players. Two enormous online audiences. Two different reasons for controversy. And one team caught in the middle. Some fans believe the league treats Clark and Cunningham differently because they challenge certain narratives. Others reject that interpretation entirely. Some say the issue is simply basketball. Some believe the physicality has gone too far. Others argue that women's basketball has always been physical, and that the current attention makes ordinary competitive incidents look like unprecedented scandals. The truth is probably more complicated. Basketball is physical. Players will make mistakes. Officials will miss calls. Coaches will disagree. Fans will become emotional. That's sports. But the WNBA also has a responsibility to make sure players feel protected. That's where the current debate becomes legitimate. The Cunningham incident was serious enough that the foul was upgraded to flagrant 2 and Carrington was ejected. White then publicly defended the unity of her team. And Clark defended White after fans booed her. That tells us something important. Whatever private frustrations may exist, Clark and Cunningham are not publicly presenting themselves as enemies of the fever. They are playing. They are competing. And they are supporting their teammates. That's why the "they are leaving" narrative needs to be handled carefully. Could either player eventually decide to leave? Of course. Professional athletes make career decisions all the time. Could frustrations influence those decisions? Possibly. But there's currently a difference between possibility and announcement. And that's exactly what makes this story so interesting. Because the WNBA doesn't need Clark or Cunningham to announce a departure for the league to have a serious conversation about player treatment. The controversy itself is enough. The league needs to examine how it handles physical play, how it communicates with players, how it responds to social media harassment, and how it protects the integrity of the competition. The WNBA has already acknowledged that online hostility and divisive rhetoric surrounding the transgender athlete debate have become serious enough to require attention from league leadership. That's not a small issue. It means the league knows the environment around its players has become increasingly intense. But now comes the biggest question. Can the WNBA calm the chaos before the controversy damages the relationship between its players and its fans? Sophie Cunningham's story is different from Caitlin Clark's. Clark's popularity exploded through basketball. Cunningham's popularity exploded through basketball and controversy. Her comments about transgender athletes placed her at the center of a national debate. She became a lightning rod. Some fans called her courageous. Others strongly criticized her. And suddenly, a professional basketball player was being discussed in political and cultural terms almost every day. That creates enormous pressure. Because athletes generally want to talk about basketball. They want to practice, play, recover, compete, win. But once an athlete becomes part of a cultural controversy, everything changes. Every interview becomes a potential headline. Every statement can go viral. And every opposing reaction can become another story. That's what happened to Cunningham. Her position sparked protests and backlash. The WNBA responded by emphasizing inclusion and condemning efforts to marginalize people. Meanwhile, Cunningham continued playing. And her popularity among certain groups of fans actually grew. That created an unusual situation. Cunningham was simultaneously becoming more controversial and more commercially valuable. Her jersey sales reportedly surged. Her social media following grew. And she became a major cultural figure beyond basketball. But fame comes with a cost. The more polarizing you become, the more criticism follows. And Cunningham's physical style added another layer. She became known as a tough player willing to defend her teammates. That was particularly visible in moments involving Caitlin Clark. Fans began creating a narrative around the two. Clark as the superstar, Cunningham as the protector. Whether that characterization is fair or not, it became extremely popular online. And that made the recent foul against Cunningham even more emotional for fans. People weren't just reacting to a basketball play. They were reacting to months of accumulated frustration. They were thinking about everything that had happened. Every controversy. Every argument. Every hard foul. Every debate. And when Cunningham was hit, some fans believed it represented another example of the league failing to protect the players they supported. But again, the facts matter. The foul was reviewed. Carrington was ejected. The call was upgraded. And Fever coach Stephanie White publicly discussed the situation. White's reaction became controversial because some fans expected her to condemn Carrington more aggressively. Instead, White emphasized that she knew Carrington as a competitor and didn't believe the play was intentionally malicious. That distinction is important. You can believe a foul was unacceptable without believing the player intended to injure someone. That's what White appeared to be saying. But online, nuance rarely survives. The story quickly became, "Coach doesn't protect Sophie." Then fans booed White. Then Caitlin Clark defended White. Then the entire Fever organization became part of the controversy. And suddenly the internet had another storyline. Maybe Clark and Cunningham are fed up. Maybe they want out. Maybe the WNBA has pushed them too far. Again, that's speculation. But it reveals something real. There is a growing divide between some fans and the league. The league is trying to manage an increasingly diverse audience. Some fans want the WNBA to focus purely on basketball. Others believe the league should address social and cultural issues. Some players are outspoken. Others prefer silence. Some fans support those positions. Others strongly oppose them. And the commissioner is caught in the middle. Kathy Engelbert has faced criticism from multiple directions. Some fans believe she doesn't do enough to protect stars. Others believe the league's leadership is responding appropriately. The WNBA Players Association has also called for stronger leadership and engagement amid the chaos. That's the real crisis. Not necessarily that Clark and Cunningham are leaving. The real crisis is whether the league can maintain trust while its popularity grows. Because if fans believe the league is unfair, they'll complain. If players believe the league is unfair, they'll complain. And if both sides lose trust, the sport suffers. That's why the current situation deserves serious discussion. Clark and Cunningham don't have to leave for the WNBA to face a wake-up call. The controversy itself is the warning. Players want respect. Fans want fairness. Coaches want stability. And the league needs credibility. If those four things disappear, no amount of television exposure can solve the problem. But there is still one question hanging over everything. Will Clark and Cunningham actually walk away? Let's separate the headline from the reality. The headline says, Clark and Sophie threaten to leave the WNBA. But there is currently no confirmed public announcement establishing that both players have decided to leave the league. In fact, recent reporting indicates that Caitlin Clark intends to remain in the WNBA. And Sophie Cunningham was still playing for the Indiana Fever as recently as August 17th, when the team celebrated her 30th birthday after a win over Atlanta. So the idea that both have already decided to leave doesn't match the publicly reported situation. But here's the important part. That doesn't mean the conversation is meaningless. It means the headline should be understood as a dramatic scenario, not a confirmed announcement. Because professional athletes can eventually make different decisions. If players repeatedly feel frustrated, they can explore other opportunities. But Clark has enormous reasons to stay. She is one of the biggest stars in women's basketball. She is still building her WNBA career. And the league remains the biggest stage for her sport in the United States. Walking away would be an enormous decision. The same applies to Cunningham. She has become a major part of the Fever's identity. Her physical style and personality have made her extremely recognizable. Leaving would also have major consequences. So what would have to happen for either player to seriously consider it? Potentially, several things. Player safety would be one. If athletes believe officiating isn't protecting them, frustration can grow. Treatment by coaches could be another. Public disputes can create tension. League policies could also matter. And personal career opportunities outside the WNBA could influence decisions. But none of those possibilities equals an actual resignation. That's why fans should watch what the players themselves say. Not what anonymous accounts claim. Not what thumbnails suggest. Not what viral posts predict. Listen to Clark. Listen to Cunningham. Look for direct interviews. Look for official announcements. Look for actual evidence. And right now, the strongest evidence points toward both players continuing with the Fever. That's actually what makes the story more interesting. The WNBA doesn't appear to be losing its stars today. Instead, it is confronting a massive challenge. How do you manage explosive growth without allowing controversy to consume the sport? The league has experienced huge growth in attendance and viewership. It has expanded. It has secured major media agreements. But the 2026 season has also been surrounded by controversy. That combination creates pressure. The league is bigger than ever. Which means every mistake becomes bigger too. Every missed call. Every controversial statement. Every player dispute. Every fan protest. Every social media argument. Everything becomes national news. And Caitlin Clark is at the center of that attention because she is one of the league's most recognizable players. Sophie Cunningham has become another major storyline because she is willing to speak openly and play aggressively. Together, they represent something the WNBA cannot ignore. A growing audience that expects the league to address controversy while still delivering basketball. The solution isn't necessarily to silence players. It isn't necessarily to punish unpopular opinions. And it isn't necessarily to protect certain stars more than others. The solution is consistency. Clear rules. Fair officiating. Strong communication. And respect. If the league can provide that, controversies can become moments of growth. If it can't, rumors of players leaving will continue to spread. And that could become a serious problem. So, will Clark and Cunningham actually leave? There is no confirmed evidence that they are leaving right now. But the fact that fans are even discussing it tells us something. Trust is fragile. And the WNBA has to protect it. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. Sophie Cunningham isn't just another player. Their situations are being watched by millions. And what happens next could shape how fans view the league for years. The biggest story isn't whether two players walk away tomorrow. The biggest story is whether the WNBA can convince its stars, and its fans, that they have a league worth staying loyal to. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have genuinely had enough of the controversy surrounding the WNBA? Or has the internet taken every disagreement, foul, and controversy and turned it into a story about them leaving? Right now, there is no confirmed announcement that either player is leaving the WNBA. Clark has continued to indicate a commitment to the league, while Cunningham remains with the Fever. But the frustration surrounding the league is real. Player treatment, officiating, physical play, social media hostility, and the growing culture war debate have created an incredibly intense environment. And that raises the biggest question. Can the WNBA fix the trust problem before it pushes more players and fans away? Drop your opinion in the comments. Do you think Clark should stay? Should Sophie stay? And do you believe the WNBA is treating both players fairly? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more WNBA breaking stories, controversies, and Caitlin Clark updates.